Europe, a continent known for its culture, history, and strong economies, is also facing a growing issue with organized crime. Gangsters who rule cities, control territories, and carry out brutal actions are impacting the lives of ordinary people. In today's episode, we will focus on 4 countries: the Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, and England, and explore how gangs gain power, intimidate societies, and the sensational stories tied to them that have shocked Europe. Get ready for shocking tales of crime that most people are unaware of. We begin with the Netherlands, a country that has become the epicenter of brutal organized crime in Europe, primarily due to gangs controlling drug trafficking. The most well-known organization in the Netherlands is the Makro Mafia, or Arab gangs with roots in Morocco. The Makro Mafia is notorious for its brutality, influence in the media and politics, and connections with drug cartels worldwide. Initially focusing on drug trafficking, the group has over time become one of the most powerful organizations in the world. Their activities extend far beyond the trade of illegal substances. They also engage in money laundering, extortion, arms trafficking, and brutal gang wars that increasingly plague Dutch cities. Makro Mafia is not the only player in the Dutch criminal market. There are several rival groups in the Netherlands fighting for influence and territory. It is important to recall the gang wars that have been raging in Amsterdam and other cities. One of the most shocking and controversial examples of this group's brutality was the case of Ridwan Taghi, one of the leaders of Makro Mafia, who was accused of the murder of a well-known investigative journalist and major drug operations. Taghi, who led illegal activities, was able to commission brutal murders to eliminate his opponents and expand the influence of gangs in the Netherlands. His activities were halted after his arrest in 2019. During his reign, rival groups not only engaged in street shootings, but also employed extremely brutal methods such as bombings, attacks on journalists, and murder contracts, in which innocent people sometimes became tragic victims of these feuds. The Netherlands has become one of the main transit points for cocaine in the world. Rotterdam, with one of the largest ports in the world, has become the center of drug trafficking. Hundreds of tons of cocaine pass through the port of Rotterdam each year, and criminal groups control most of this activity. Rotterdam has become such an important transport hub that gangs have begun competing with each other for control of this route. Although the Dutch police take action, they are often unable to stop the massive quantities of drugs that are entering Europe. What sets Makro Mafia apart is the way they manage the trade. They operate in networks that are difficult to dismantle. Their structure is so well organized that, although the pursuit of criminals lasts for years, the gang remains powerful and influential. Drug trafficking in the Netherlands is a huge industry in which gangs earn tens of millions of euros annually. The Netherlands, despite being one of the wealthiest countries in Europe, faces serious social issues. A large concentration of immigrants from Morocco, Algeria, and Turkey, as well as their children, form groups that are susceptible to being attracted by gangs. In cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague, the gang problem is becoming increasingly visible. Many young people from immigrant families grow up in difficult conditions, in neighborhoods dominated by crime. In such places, gangs offer them support, belonging, as well as quick access to money and prestige. Unfortunately, this choice leads to many tragedies: murders, kidnappings, and irreversible consequences for those young people who end up in prison and whose lives are destroyed. 2021, the year that brought the assassination of investigative journalist Peter de Vries, marked the culmination of events that had started much earlier. This was not a one-time act of violence, but another step in the brutal campaign by gangs aimed at intimidating those who stand in their way. Peter de Vries, an icon of Dutch investigative journalism, was a figure known throughout the country for his relentless fight against organized crime. For decades, he exposed the most powerful criminal groups, never shying away from revealing the truth about the most brutal and influential gangs. He was also the voice of victims, fighting for justice in cases that seemed hopeless. At the time of the assassination, he was the advisor and confidant of Nabil B., a key Crown witness in the trial against the leaders of Makro Mafia. Peter de Vries took on the role of advisor and spokesman for Nabil B. His involvement in the case further enraged the group. De Vries became public enemy number one because he represented everything criminals feared: steadfastness, courage, and the ability to reach the public. On July 6, 2021, Peter de Vries was shot in broad daylight in downtown Amsterdam, near the television studio where he had just appeared. The assassination shook not only the Netherlands but all of Europe, becoming a symbol of the unprecedented threat posed by organized crime. De Vries died a few days later in the hospital, and his death highlighted how deeply the gangs had infiltrated the social structures. Earlier in 2019, the Netherlands was shaken by the news of the murder of Dirk Wiersum, a lawyer who also represented Nabil B. Wiersum was shot in front of his house in Amsterdam, marking the first such open attack on a judicial representative in the history of the Netherlands. This brutal murder aimed not only to eliminate a person supporting a key witness, but also to send a clear message that no one opposing the macro mafia is safe. Just a year earlier, in 2018, Nabil B's brother was also murdered in his home in Utrecht. It was an act of revenge designed to psychologically break the Crown witness and force him to withdraw from the trial. Nabil's brother had no connections to crime, and his death was a display of the brutality and ruthlessness of the gangs, who would stop at nothing to protect their interests. The murder of the Crown witness's brother, lawyer Dirk Wiersum, and Peter de Vries are part of a broader intimidation mechanism employed by this group. It is not just the elimination of individuals, but also a strategic display of power aimed at paralyzing the justice system and discouraging others from cooperating with the authorities. These tragic events sparked a nationwide debate about public safety and the state's ability to protect those involved in the fight against crime. The Dutch government has committed to strengthening the protection of Crown witnesses, their families, and lawyers. But the question remains, is this enough? The murder of de Vries showed that gangs have no limits in their actions, and the scale of the problem is greater than ever imagined. The death of Peter de Vries was a great loss, but his legacy continues to inspire people to fight against crime. De Vries became a symbol of courage and resilience, and his work serves as a reminder of the importance of standing up to injustice, even in the face of the greatest danger. For many, his story is proof that an individual can challenge a criminal system, though the price he had to pay was the highest. It is also worth noting that the creators of the series Macro Mafia, which depicts the brutal actions of Moroccan gangs in the Netherlands, also had to face serious threats from criminals. The series, although fictional, is heavily inspired by real events, and its creators, including directors and screenwriters, became targets of threats and attacks. As a result, they were forced to hide their identities and take protective measures. Such cases highlight how dangerous it is to challenge the world of organized crime. The scale of the threat posed by the macro mafia was so immense that even the highest authorities in the Netherlands could not feel safe. Prime Minister Mark Rutte, known for moving about without protection on a daily basis, had to change his routine when security services detected that the gangsters were planning to kidnap or assassinate him. The criminal group aimed to intimidate the government by putting pressure on anti-drug policies. However, the gangsters didn't limit their threats to politicians alone. Similar threats were made against the royal family. Particularly concerning were the reports of threats against Princess Catharina Amalia, the daughter of the King of the Netherlands. Plans for her kidnapping or assassination caused a real shock in the country. As a result, the young princess, who had started her studies in Amsterdam, was forced to leave her dorm and live under constant protection. Threats against the Prime Minister and the royal family were more than just criminal actions. They became a symbolic attack on the state structures. They showed that criminal gangs have no qualms about undermining the authority of the government, and their influence reaches even the highest echelons of society. This escalation of danger made it clear that the Netherlands, though seen as a stable country, is grappling with a deep security crisis. Gangsters not only control the illegal drug trade and extort protection money, but they are also destabilizing society, striking at the very foundations of the state. The Netherlands, despite its reputation, is becoming increasingly dangerous. The macro mafia, gang violence, drug trafficking, and murders are just some of the problems related to organized crime that the country is facing. While the government is taking action, the situation appears difficult to resolve. The Netherlands is grappling with a growing issue of crime with no end in sight. What future awaits a country that has become so deeply entangled with organized crime? If you're interested in the topic of the macro mafia, you'll find a separate episode on my channel where I go into detail about this brutal organization and its influence on the Netherlands and beyond. Check it out later on my channel, and now I'll tell you a bit about Germany. We now move on to Germany, a country overtaken by Arab clans. Germany has been grappling with organized crime, which in recent decades has taken on a new dimension. What once seemed like a marginal issue now stands as one of the most serious challenges for law enforcement, the justice system, and society. Organized crime in Germany is not just about spectacular robberies, drug smuggling, or money laundering. It also involves deeply rooted structures that permeate both criminal environments and the legal economy. One of the factors contributing to the rise of organized crime in Germany was migration from the Middle East, the Balkans, and North Africa. In the 1970s and 1980s, thousands of refugees and immigrants came to Germany, fleeing war and economic hardships. Many of them ended up in closed, marginalized communities, where the lack of prospects for a better life fostered the development of illegal means of making a living. Over time, in these communities, structures based on family and ethnic ties began to emerge, evolving into organized criminal clans. Over the years, their activities shifted from petty thefts and extortion to running multi-million-dollar operations involving drug smuggling, money laundering, and arms trafficking. Today, Arab and Turkish clans have dominated organized crime in Germany, and their influence extends not only to major cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, but also to smaller towns. In this case, we are dealing with groups that operate at the level of family networks, with their operations spread across many levels, from drug dealers to high-level criminals involved in money laundering. At the same time, German cities are experiencing numerous clashes, attacks, and large-scale illegal activities. The most popular in German organized crime are the Arab and Turkish clans, which have dominated the German criminal scene over the past several years. Among the most well-known criminal groups are the Remo, Abu Chakr, Miri, and Al-Zine clans. Initially, these criminal organizations were involved in minor crimes typical for newly emerging gangs, such as thefts, extortion, and drug trafficking. Over time, their activities evolved, and their structures became increasingly complex, eventually growing into powerful organizations with international reach. Although these groups started with petty crimes, their activities quickly expanded into more complex operations with vast reach. The trafficking of illegal substances became one of the main sources of income for the clans. They are not only involved in the distribution of drugs on the German market, but also move goods between countries including the Netherlands, Belgium, and Spain, controlling extensive supply networks. Cocaine, heroin, and amphetamines enter Germany in large quantities, with criminal organizations making billions of euros from their sale. Another significant area of activity for the clans is car smuggling. Germany, with its large automotive market, provided an ideal base for criminals involved in luxury car theft. Clan members not only steal cars, but also organize their sale on the black market, both in Germany and abroad. The value of these operations reaches millions of euros annually, making car smuggling one of the main sources of income for these gangs. The development of the clans, however, does not stop at trafficking illegal substances and car theft. They have also begun to infiltrate other sectors of the economy, creating elaborate networks of criminal activities that include gambling, arms smuggling, and money laundering. In the area of gambling, Arab and Turkish clans control illegal casinos and other forms of betting, which generate significant income. And they also use these venues to launder money obtained from other illegal sources. Attention should also be drawn to arms trafficking. Germany has become a key point on the map of international arms smuggling, particularly in connection with gangs operating in Middle Eastern countries. The criminal clans not only deal in weapons, but also supply them to war-torn countries, where battles are fought between various military groups. Furthermore, one of the most lucrative areas in which they operate is money laundering. By using legitimate businesses such as restaurants, hotels, stores, and investing in real estate, these clans can mask their illegal income and create intricate networks of transactions that allow them to legitimize vast sums of money obtained from crimes. Recently, there was news about an unemployed woman from a clan who owned around 70 properties worth tens of millions of euros. I can't understand how this is possible in Germany, because in Poland, If someone buys a small flat in a remote village and doesn't report any income, they immediately run into problems with the tax office. Yet this woman had been ignored by the authorities until now. It is also worth noting that some of these criminal groups have begun to exert influence on mass culture, particularly in the music scene. The Epicenter clan is linked to the German rap scene, and some artists who collaborate with members of this group promote a criminal lifestyle in their songs. This phenomenon affects younger generations, who may view gang life as a path to success, which only deepens the problem of crime. Thanks to their extensive international connections, these clans have gained access to global markets, allowing them to carry out operations on a massive scale. Their activities are no longer confined to Germany. They have interests in other European countries such as the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, as well as in the Middle East, Latin America, and Asia. With these international links, the Arab and Turkish clans have become one of the most powerful elements of international organized crime. Looking at the development of organized crime in Germany, it's impossible not to notice how rapidly these groups have evolved. From petty crimes such as theft and extortion, they have moved to controlling vast sectors of the economy, engaging in international trade and money laundering. German authorities are attempting to combat these organizations, but their structures are so complex and widespread that dismantling them is extremely difficult. Over the years, Arab and Turkish clans have not only become a significant part of Germany's organized crime scene, but also a serious threat to public order and social stability. One of the most notorious and spectacular cases of organized crime in Germany, which gained international attention, was the theft of a gold coin at the Bodi Museum in Berlin. This heist, carried out by members of the Remo clan, is considered one of the boldest robberies of a German museum in history. The entire operation, with its meticulous planning and execution, attracted not only German media attention, but also that of the world, becoming a symbol of modern organized crime. The theft took place in a manner that suggested enormous experience and skill from the criminals, who were able to carry out such a complicated operation in one of the most heavily guarded locations in Germany. Although the museum robbery became internationally recognized, for the Remo clan, which was behind this action, it was not their only criminal activity. This group has been involved in a wide range of illegal ventures for years. The Remo clan not only specializes in art theft, but is also one of the main players in Germany's drug trade. Drug trafficking on a massive scale is just one pillar of their illegal operations. Additionally, the Remo clan is also involved in money laundering, using illegally obtained funds to invest in legal enterprises, which helps them maintain a powerful position in Germany's criminal scene. Their actions are not limited to local crime. The Remo clan has strong ties to other criminal organizations across Europe, and their influence extends into many areas of criminal activity, from drug trafficking and theft to controlling various sectors of the economy. In this way, the Remo clan has become one of the most powerful players in Germany's organized crime scene, leaving behind a trail that will be hard to erase. The Epicenter clan, one of the most notorious and dangerous organizations in German organized crime, gained fame due to its strong connections with other criminal groups across Europe. Its leader, Arafat Abu-Chaker, is a controversial figure who has frequently appeared in the German media. Known for his brutality, especially in the realm of extortion and the use of violence within family structures, where there is allegedly no room for weakness, Arafat has earned a dark reputation through his involvement in numerous scandals. It is important to note that the activities of the Epicenter clan are not limited to traditional crimes, but are also deeply intertwined with street and rap culture. Arafat and his clan members have long been linked to rap artists who describe the brutal realities of life in the criminal world in their songs. One of the most controversial cases is the relationship between Arafat and the German rapper Bushido, whose career gained momentum after his personal life and music became associated with the criminal world. Although the rapper denied any ties to the clan, it is hard to overlook the many controversies surrounding his image. His lyrics, full of violence and rebellion, became a manifesto for those living in the criminal environment. Despite his efforts to separate his personal life from the clan's activities, the brutal nature of his work was directly linked to the realities of the world ruled by Abu-Chaker. However, after years of collaboration with the clan, Bushido took a step that further intensified his controversial image. He decided to cooperate with the German police. After a series of threats and incidents related to his past, the rapper began working with law enforcement, sparking a wave of criticism from his former associates and fans. Although Bushido tried to distance himself from the criminal world, his decision to collaborate with the police was seen as a betrayal by many who regarded him as a symbol of rebellion. Another notorious group that has earned a reputation for its brutal activities is the Miri clan, which is particularly well known in Berlin. This clan has been involved in violent attacks against its rivals, demonstrating a willingness to use large-scale violence to destroy competition and dominate its territories. The activities of the Miri clan include not only rivalry with other gangs, but also attempts to intimidate politicians and officials who might stand in their way. Their methods resemble more military tactics, where every step is carefully planned and violence is seen as a tool for achieving dominance. This group stops at nothing, not only on the criminal level, but also in terms of societal and political influence. It is also important to mention the Alzine clan, one of the most dangerous and rapidly growing threats in German organized crime, particularly in Berlin, where their influence is especially strong. Originating from Lebanon, Alzine initially started as a small group with limited criminal ties, but over the years it expanded its operations on a large scale, becoming one of the key players in the German criminal scene. Like the other clans mentioned earlier, the activities of Alzine involve a wide range of crimes including drug trafficking, extortion, and money laundering. Using their connections to the international illegal drug trade, the group has become an integral part of the organized crime world, not only in Germany but also in other European countries. Their activities in the drug trade not only involve smuggling, but also controlling local sales markets, which provides them with enormous profits and maintains their high position in the organized crime structures. Alzine gained particular notoriety due to the brutal extortions they use, not only against their rivals, but also against individuals who attempt to break free from their control. Violence is a key element of their operational methods, which has contributed to their reputation as one of the most ruthless clans in Germany. Their loyalty to each other and willingness to use large-scale violence makes them a very difficult opponent to defeat. Moreover, the Alzine clan has strong ties to international crime, with its members present not only in Germany, but also in Belgium, the Netherlands, and other European countries. In these nations, the clan continues to operate its illegal businesses and expand its network of connections, allowing them to control various segments of the criminal market across Europe. Germany has also become a hub for international drug trafficking, with ties to many other countries, including the Netherlands, Belgium, and Spain. As part of the illegal activities of the clans, Germany has become a place where vast amounts of drugs are smuggled into Europe. One of the important phenomena that has dominated the German and English drug scenes is county lines, a system in which young people from impoverished neighborhoods, particularly from immigrant families, are exploited by gangs to transport drugs over long distances. They carry drugs in cars, and their task is to deliver the goods to a designated location. Many individuals are unaware that they are being drawn into the operations of criminal groups, which will ruin their lives with the promise of quick money. Often they fail to realize that they become mere pawns in a game that ends in prison or death. In Germany, the gang problem is not limited to large-scale criminal activity. The past few years have seen a real rise in crime associated with brutal attacks, shootings, and extortion. In cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, gangs are engaged in brutal wars, often ending in street shootings. The main issue is the rivalry between clans fighting for control over drug markets, but also the attempt to intimidate their opponents. Arab and Turkish clans in Germany, although mainly involved in drug-related crimes, are also specialists in money laundering. They use legitimate businesses such as restaurants, hotels, and shops to hide illegal profits. Their operations extend across many levels, and their influence reaches terrorist organizations, drug cartels in Latin America and Asia. German cities, especially those with large immigrant populations, have become financial hubs for illegal activities, where illicit transactions can be carried out with ease. German authorities are doing everything they can to dismantle these groups and restore order on the streets. But each year, the problem becomes more complicated. Now let's turn to Sweden, which is currently facing a growing problem of organized crime, especially in cities like Stockholm, Malmö, and Göteborg. Over the past 2 decades, Sweden has become one of the main hubs for gang activity in Europe, and violence between criminal groups is increasingly making headlines. Swedish organized crime is based on groups that primarily operate in immigrant neighborhoods. And as with the other countries I mentioned, they are often involved in drug smuggling, arms trafficking, and other large-scale crimes. Just like in Germany or the Netherlands, Sweden is witnessing intense gang rivalries over control of territories and illegal markets. In Sweden, organized crime is dominated by gangs linked to immigrants, especially from the Middle East and North Africa. The largest criminal groups in the country include No Surrender, Loyalty, as well as international clans like the Hells Angels, who have branches in Sweden, using their international reach to expand their operations throughout the country. Although Swedish gangs are not as well organized as, for example, the Italian Cosa Nostra or Colombian cartels, their brutal methods, rapid expansion, and growing influence on local communities make them a serious threat. The Swedish criminal market does not have as centralized a structure as other mafia organizations, which makes it more flexible and harder to combat, but also more prone to violent gang clashes over control of territories. The No Surrender, which has gained significant recognition, operates primarily in Stockholm and Malmö. This group is particularly known for its involvement in drug trafficking, brutal extortion, and kidnappings. Members of this gang use extreme methods of violence, not hesitating to exchange gunfire in the streets of cities to solidify their position in the criminal hierarchy. These crimes not only threaten public order, but also spread fear among the residents of these cities. On the other hand, the Loyalty gang operates mainly in Göteborg and Stockholm, focusing on drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and brutal kidnappings. This group also does not hesitate to use violence to intimidate its rivals and gain control over key areas of illegal activities. Due to its brutality and connections with other international criminal groups, Loyalty has become one of the most dangerous organizations in the country. Sweden has become one of the main drug smuggling markets in Europe, attracting gangs from various corners of the world. Among the key players in this market is the No Surrender gang, which controls drug trafficking. Drugs are sold not only in large cities such as Stockholm, Malmö, and Göteborg, but also in smaller towns where a significant percentage of the population is made up of immigrants. Although drug prices in Sweden are relatively high, it is precisely these prices that allow gangs to achieve huge profits. The rise in violence between gangs is largely due to the competition for control over drug markets and profits from illegal activities, such as arms trafficking or car theft. Stockholm has become the epicenter of the brutal gang war, where regular shootings and attacks occur, and victims are killed on the streets. In 2022, there were 333 incidents involving firearms in the Swedish capital, with 20 people losing their lives and over 100 injured. These statistics show the increasing number of violent clashes between gangs, with gunfire exchanges taking place in public places, metro stations, restaurants, and clubs, creating widespread fear among citizens. Additionally, in recent years, the number of shootings in the country has increased by 80%, which clearly indicates the growing problem of organized crime. The gang war, especially between the No Surrender and Loyalty groups, is becoming increasingly visible in everyday life, and some neighborhoods have become almost exclusively under the control of criminals. These gangs not only compete for territories but also intimidate local politicians, police officers, and residents to gain full dominance in their areas. Some neighborhoods have become so dangerous that if someone wants to shake off a tail, they just need to drive into them. Even the police avoid intervening in these areas, and if a patrol car does show up, the officers do not get out of the vehicle, as an aggressive crowd quickly gathers. Despite the growing problem with gangs, Sweden is taking intensive measures to stop the wave of violence. In 2017, special police units were created to fight organized crime. The main goal of these units is to take control of areas dominated by gangs and dismantle their structures. However, despite numerous attempts, the problem remains unresolved, and gangs are still able to effectively bypass security systems, silencing or intimidating witnesses. Despite the authorities' efforts, the number of gun-related crimes continues to rise, and the brutality of these crimes is becoming more visible in the everyday lives of citizens. Residents of some neighborhoods often fear leaving their homes, and bombings and shootings are becoming almost a daily occurrence. At the same time, the Swedish police are trying to build social trust, but the growing number of crimes and tensions between criminal groups and citizens puts them in a difficult position. Police structures are overwhelmed, and the fight against gangs is becoming increasingly complicated. Gang wars, drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and other criminal activities remain a huge challenge for Swedish law enforcement, and their brutality raises questions about the future of this previously safe part of Europe. The situation is similar in England, which also struggles with a serious problem of organized crime, which is becoming increasingly visible in large cities like London, Manchester, Birmingham, and Liverpool. Although these metropolises have a reputation for being safe, organized crime still poses a significant challenge to law enforcement. The gangsters, who initially operated as local criminal groups involved in drug trafficking, arms smuggling, extortion, and theft, have gained strength over the years and become international players. Their activities now include not only human trafficking, money laundering, but also cybercrime. In England, like in other countries, there is a history of gangs that over time have dominated the criminal scene. Their actions have had a huge impact on society, and their history is closely tied to the London and English criminal world. A classic example of gangs that started with street fights and petty crimes, but over time became one of the most powerful criminal empires in London is the Krays. Ronnie and Reggie Kray were responsible for, among other things, drug trafficking, pimping, extortion, and other crimes. Their activity lasted from the 1950s to the 1960s, and although their gang was dismantled, their influence on London's criminal underworld remains significant to this day. The Krays are a symbol of the brutal power they gained in the London Underground, and a demonstration of how quickly a small group can turn into a nationwide threat. After the Krays' downfall, the Addams family emerged on the London criminal scene, expanding their influence on a large scale. Terry Addams, the leader of the family, managed to make the gang one of the most powerful in London in the 1990s. They were involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and money laundering, with their influence extending beyond England's borders. The Addams family was extremely clever in evading the law, which made them one of the most difficult targets for the police. Though their activity was eventually neutralized, they left a visible mark on the history of English crime. Another gang that gained popularity due to a TV series is the Peaky Blinders. This gang, whose members wore distinctive flat caps, was involved in smuggling, drug trafficking, and brutal attacks on their rivals. Although the story of the Peaky Blinders in the series is heavily fictionalized, the reality of this criminal group was no less brutal. Their activities were also connected to the growing power of gangs in Birmingham, and the name Peaky Blinders became a symbol of the tough fight for dominance in the criminal world. In England, one of the main sources of income for gangs is also the trafficking of illegal substances. London has become the epicenter of smuggling these substances into the UK. In recent years, gangs in England have increasingly engaged in international drug trafficking, even starting to compete for influence in other countries, such as Spain and the Netherlands. Among the most brutal gangs controlling the drug market are the Gooch Gang from Manchester and the Zulu Nation from London. The violence they use to seize territories and eliminate competitors is enormous. Gang battles for influence mainly take place on the streets of London, where shootings, brutal attacks, and even kidnappings of rivals occur. Gangsters in England not only compete for control over drugs, but also engage in extortion and drug trafficking in small towns, where local gangs recruit juveniles to distribute illegal substances. This practice has tragic consequences for the youth, who become part of this brutal reality. Although English gangs are known for their brutality on the streets of their cities, their influence extends far beyond the country's borders. The Addams Gang and other groups are responsible for international trade, arms smuggling, and other forms of organized crime across Europe. Many members of English gangs, such as the Krays, had connections to international crime, including the Italian mafia and Latin American cartels. Furthermore, some English gangs operate not only in Europe, but also have branches in Asia, North America, and South America. English organized crime also impacts financial crime, where illegal profits from gang activities are often hidden in legal investments, such as real estate. Gang wars in England are common and brutal, and one of the most frequent types of violence are shootings on the streets of London and other major cities. From time to time, clashes occur between rival gangs over territories or even political and financial influence. In 2018, as a result of a fight in London, a brutal shooting took place, which tragically ended the lives of 3 people and caused serious injuries to others. In 2020, a series of attacks took place involving members of the Addams family, who were attempting to take over the territories of their rivals. Despite the great efforts of law enforcement, organized crime in England shows no signs of slowing down. Gangsters from London, Manchester, Birmingham, and Liverpool control the streets of their cities, and the wars between them and the brutality on the streets have unfortunately become part of the reality that authorities are trying to tame. But the challenges remain enormous. The Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, England, 4 different countries, but they all struggle with the same issue. Gangsters are taking control of territories, and their influence continues to grow. What connects these gangs? Brutality, ruthlessness, and violence that know no boundaries. While authorities are taking action, the problem of organized crime in Europe only worsens. What can be done to stop this wave of violence? What steps should be taken to combat the gangs that have dominated the streets of European cities? This question remains unanswered. What do you think about this? I'm waiting for your opinions in the comments.